Hey everyone, welcome to Gorge Views. This week we got a special in-studio guest, and it is Galen Bailey of Site C Rentals. And Galen's been operating for quite a while in Niagara Falls, but let Galen tell you about his company's history. Galen, when did you get started?
Hi, how are you? I've been in tourism in Niagara Falls for owning a business since 2011. I worked in tourism when I was in high school as a teenager, actually in the state parks on the trolley. I was a conductor on the trolley, I actually read the speech on the trolley. So that was kind of my first taste of tourism, which evolved into me working for a couple different tour companies, Over the Falls Tours and Cataract Tours. And then from there, I decided I liked tourism so much and I enjoyed doing tours that I got into a business called Niagara Pedicab, which was a bicycle rickshaw business. And I did personal tours of the state park on a bicycle rickshaw. And I enjoyed doing that. And from there, I kind of morphed into doing walking tours, bicycle tours, which turned into bike rentals, which then evolved into pretty much we rent anything somebody would need for while they're on vacation, from bicycles to wheelchairs, electric mobility scooters, strollers, and now stand-up electric scooters that we rent that are made by Ninebot. They're Segway scooters. And yeah, well, I've really just been renting, pretty much evolving from every year. It seems like I have a new evolution I moved into.
Yeah, it's interesting. We think about telephones and camera technology and stuff evolving, but just personal transportation technology has evolved quite a bit. The scooters are everywhere. You got your battery-assisted bicycles. There's just so many products, and I've been watching it from my front door. You know, obviously with the new paths, I see a lot more people coming by, and it seems like every day I'm seeing a whole new contraption that someone's utilizing to get by.
Yeah, every year I add something new or test it out in the beginning of the year to see how the customer will react to it, how they will ride it, and just what can it take of just rentability, kind of the beating it could take from the customer, how do they handle it. You obviously want it to be something that's safe, and just obviously the enjoyment factor if they think it's the best way to get around. So the customer really kind of dictates. I put it out there, and then the customer kind of decides, is this a winner or a loser? And the electric scooters are a winner. The customers love it. I have these other little e-scoot bikes I've been renting that it's somewhere between a scooter and it's like a pedalless electric bike.
Yeah.
Customers, if they don't want to stand up on the scooter, they like the other electric, the e-scoot bike. And it seems that electric, everything's moving electric.
Now you're set up in two locations. Tell me the difference between the two locations. Is there?
Yeah, so the Old Falls Street and Prospect Street is a rental kiosk. We have kind of like a pop-up shop, well, not a pop-up shop, but a kiosk there right on the corner there, right at the entrance of the park. And that one is open pretty much from May to, I would say, mid-October daily, also weather permitting, because all of our inventory is outside. So basically the street is kind of our retail spot. And just the location there, we're kind of like an unofficial visitor center too, because so many people come to us because of our location there. The spot that is fairly new on 3rd Street, right next to Donatello's and The Craft. We actually took over both storefronts. That is, kind of started as really more of a storage spot, just so we could charge our scooters up. If I had to store bicycles and stuff like that. And now it's really more turned into a kind of a retail location where I'm now retailing electric mobility scooters, new and used. I'm going to be retailing stand-up electric scooters, and more than likely moving into retailing and renting electric bicycles. And it's where I have my office and a desk where I can work on stuff when when it's slow. And it's just something also to keep a presence in the downtown when the tour season dries up a bit. It's still nice to be down there to see what's going on and just be active on the street. I lived on 3rd Street above Wine on 3rd for a period, so it's kind of nice to just continue to be on 3rd Street there.
The good old days.
Yeah, it was kind of a tough place to live.
The 3rd Street location, then it's
too much drinking.
It sounds like a year-round HQ, and locally, someone who's looking. Either they already have an electric scooter or an electric bike and something's wrong with it, they can kind of consult you. And then if they're looking to buy something like that, then that's the place to go.
Yeah, a lot of people want to buy the equipment after they rent it. So, or they just want to buy my equipment. It seems like I don't, even in the age of technology, people could buy anything they want online.
Yep.
People still like to talk to somebody about before they buy it if they don't know. So because I rent so much stuff and I'm involved in so much stuff, I can always kind of guide somebody like, well, you should buy from this company or look at this one because I've done the research myself. I'm
Yeah.
buying too to.
You're the expert.
Yeah, I want to know what kind of electric bike. Yeah, there's 50 of them, 100 of them on the internet, but which one's a good one? You don't really know till you buy and experiment. So it's I've kind of like unofficially do that. A lot of people just stop in and like to chat with me and see what I'm renting, and then a lot of times I want to buy something I have used that I've rented to like it. So, and I have been selling a few of them, and it's kind of something that's going to maybe evolve into that. But as I grow and have more contacts with manufacturers and being able to be a retailer of them, I could see a new and used thing developing. I think the used market of equipment will be. It's
Right.
always there.
Especially
People
with
want to buy. Maybe they don't want to spend $500 on something and they want to spend $100. And to them it's still a good quality thing even though it's used. But it's everyone's preference is a little bit different. I'm always amazed too when people are adamantly seems to be chasing me down to buy a bike for me. I'm like, just buy it from. I don't know why you want to buy a bike for me so badly. I just rent them. But it seems to me the customer always kind of drags me into something. I mean, I never would have thought I'd be renting as much stuff as I do. I just started with 10 beach cruisers, and when people kept coming up asking about wheelchairs or strollers, I was like, I heard it enough to have to go buy it. If I just said I'm not listening to the customer, I know what I want to rent. It's not. You kind of have to let the customer pull you a bit into the direction and lead you to success. It's not. You're not always right. The customer is usually the one that knows what they want. Just listen to them.
Let's talk like trade up. Everything has entry level stuff. Like there's a cheap scooter that gets you going, and then you find out you really love it, but this doesn't have the battery life or whatever. Is that part of your business? And I come with my used scooter, sell it to you, or trade it in for a higher end scooter?
No, not so much. I generally don't want to buy used of anybody. I want it's also
You want to know its history before you sell it.
Also, yeah, exactly. Well, in today's world too, you never know where it came from. Is it stolen? Is it what is this?
Fair enough.
I mean, I have a lot of people that try to sell used bikes to me, and a lot of them are from Walmart. I could tell because I shop the bike market a lot, and immediately to me that's worth $10, and which they don't want to hear that. And then also too, like where'd you get this bike from? Is this Walmart bikes are a dime a dozen? Is this an actual one you bought? Is this something you stole? Did you buy it used? Now you're trying to flip it to me. I just tend to stay away from buying anything used. I'd rather. I mean, I have bought and if I buy used anything, it's come from a credible. I bought and used bikes from Beaton's, Cataract City and Lock, but I know I'm getting them from. I bought and used mobility scooters, but I generally try to buy new everything.
You obviously have a web presence now.
Yeah, our web presence is starting to build up. Honestly, when I first started, the street location was so good, you didn't even have to have a web presence. I mean, so many people came by the stand, and it just did so well, just strictly on the street. So that is something I'm really going to be working on building up. SightSeeRentals.com is something that's going to be developed with a whole booking process right online. So people coming into town can pre-book right online for their scooter or wheelchair, whatever they need. And there will be a way that we will actually deliver it right to the hotel so that they come into town, they know exactly what type of equipment that they have, and that kind of an itinerary that they'll have of how to get around the best with that piece of equipment. So maybe different options are like, all right, go to the Maid of the Mist at this time, do Cave of the Winds at this time, view the gorge this way. This is, kind of the best restaurants that you can lock your equipment up, or where you can bring it to and just have an easier time. So kind of not just here's the equipment, do as you wish with it, but which of course they can do anything they want with it, but kind of guiding them a little bit of how to best get around Niagara Falls. Because really the downtown is a super awesome little downtown to get around on a bike or an electric scooter.
Absolutely.
It's not that big.
Yeah.
It's only about a mile radius. So it is a little bit to walk, but it is really great to be able to whiz around on something, and you can see so much more on some sort of either an electric scooter or a bicycle so much faster. And so people generally seem to like having, their, you give them a bike, that's their bike for 24 hours, or that's their scooter. It's not the whole drop it off and maybe get a different one. Maybe, it's kind of their own little personal vehicle.
That's
or
absolutely why
they can get
I
around
love
them.
that you exist. I mean, I tried bike rentals my first year for my gas, and it always seemed like, very few did rent a bike. I mean, my location's pretty good, so you walk to the park, no problem. And then those who did, it was always like a day that I'm rushed to deal with my other stuff. I'm not a bike rental guy. I'm a hostel. I'm trying to deal with turning over rooms and checking people in and giving the same level of tourist advice you are. And then you get someone who wants to rent a bike, but like, oh, I'll be right back. Then you're kind of waiting for them, and a half hour later they come out, and then they want something that's taller or shorter than I have, and I can't have the inventory you have because I'm just there for my own gas. But to be able to send them there is excellent. I mean, your 3rd Street location is very close. You're on the park's doorstep anyway, so even if they don't want to go down 3rd Street and have breakfast and grab from you, they can get at the park. But the northern direction from my place, it's really easy to go to Whirlpool State Park from my location. It's just as easy to go to Goat Island. But beyond that, you can go 4 more miles, and that's a lot of walking. What people also need to know, I looked at it, from your location, you can travel easily 5 miles up to basically the Power Vista.
Yeah.
And then that's the gorge. And then you can travel the upper river another 5 miles too. So that's 5 miles up, 5 miles back. For some people, 10 miles in a day, that's a lot. But on the gorge trip, you can put the bike on the shuttle, because the shuttle has the bike racks.
Yeah. The shuttle does have bike racks on the front that, it is a little confusing too to put them on there, and it's not just from the shuttle. It's like any public transportation, you got to put it on the front there, latch it in. And I've done it myself on a public bus before, and I was a little kind of nervous about putting it on the front of the bus. But I'm hoping that with the scooters too, people have been taking them. They take them in their vehicles other places too. It's not just tourists that rent these. We have a ton of locals from Niagara Falls and really Erie County that have been renting the scooters and taking them all over. They take them to Niawana Park, they take them to Fort Niagara. I've seen them at High Park. I've seen them when I've gone out, on my own when I'm not open, and I see people on my scooters in like Tonawanda. I'm like, wow. I'm like, they're really going all over these places. So, it's just, being able to take it and get it around, and, however the customer doesn't really know what they can do with it. You kind of have to guide them and tell them, hey, you can take this here. And I'm always constantly giving them options of what they could see. One, to extend their stay, or one, because obviously I'm trying to get them to take it for multiple days, and then here's what you can do with it, and this is the best way to get around. So it's, the 3rd Street location too is kind of a strategic spot because of the pass opening up. I knew they would be opening up. This is something I've been watching, for the last 10 years. It's took a very long time to get going. I'm actually, I honestly, at certain points, I didn't think it was even going to happen. And I've been kind of just been waiting, like, all right, because when I started the pedicab business, you could only go so many places. It was like you go around the park and that was it. There were no other really bike paths you could go to. I went on, the closed highway. I've been taking people to the gorge on the pedicab tour. We would go on it and to these hidden spots that are now not so hidden. And I really just been waiting for, this infrastructure to open up, because there's so many more things that could happen, like a pedicab business. Maybe it's way ahead of its time, because there were so many limited places you go to. Now, like the gorge, people are going to want to go there. It's a cool spot, and there's going to be so many different options, whether you take a bike or a scooter. Could it be a pedicab? Someone that has trouble walking that wants to go to Whirlpool State Park and back? Well, now there's actually a nice path that brings you there. Before, it was kind of chaotic to get somebody to Whirlpool State Park,
Before, it was a lot more of getting to Whirlpool State Park. Now, all the space between Niagara Falls and Whirlpool State Park is worthy of being seen. I mean, I wouldn't, I think you're missing a lot if you jump in your car and drive out to Whirlpool State Park.
Yeah,
you either got to walk it or bike it. Walking's going to take a long time. Biking it's going to be, because there's spots. There's so many different overlooks. There's so many nooks and crannies on that journey that you're just missing incredible views if you drive your car to Whirlpool State Park.
Yeah. There's so many too, like of the equipment that I rent. One of the, I would say probably, I wouldn't call it the life-saving equipment, but people say that to me when they come back. You're a lifesaver with this mobility scooter. I would have never been able to see the park like I did without this mobility scooter. People get there, and a lot of people have came, in the past, at a time when I guess the Robert Moses Parkway literally went right by the waterfall. I guess it was in Prospect Park. That was apparently a road.
Like
so they
6
could
feet
drive
tall.
by and actually see the waterfall and never get out of their car. Because people will ask me, "Where's that spot where I don't have to get out of my car?" I'm like,
Doesn't
it
exist.
doesn't exist,
Not
man. You got to
anymore,
park
yeah.
your car and go walk to it, and then people will have, I could see there'll be, somebody from their families essentially almost stranded on a park bench because they can't walk. They didn't realize how much walking there was. So they're almost left out. Then they stumble upon me and they get a mobility scooter or a wheelchair. And it really kind of gives them their freedom back, especially the mobility scooter. I have these two locals that have come down twice now. They didn't know I existed, and they came down and saw the scooters, the mobility scooters, and then they went to the Shokoff kind of overlook elevator area.
Right.
And they've heard about these spots, but they could never go to them because they couldn't get there really. And to have the access to go, like the guy said, he never went under the Rainbow Bridge from Prospect Park to the Shokoff before in his life. And he had such a great time doing it. And he's so excited that these paths have opened up. So like they rent and they kind of go explore a new spot. Like they went to the Stone Chimney area. It kind of gives them their freedom to really explore and see these spots and these paths these viewpoints they could never get to. One, they were either blocked off or they just didn't have the equipment to get them there. So it definitely feels like I'm doing something, a great service to the community and to the tourists that come, because I'm giving them something that they would never be able to enjoy their stay without what I provided them. They would have came there and just would have been kind of disappointed. And I know I'm doing something I'm supposed to be doing, because people come back and they shake my hand. They're like, "Thank you so much for this mobility scooter."
That's how you know. I mean, that's the best feeling when your customer hugs you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
this summer too, of the amount of repeat customers, not even just from locals, but of like Rochester, even New York City. I had people that came from New York City 4 times, and they rented scooters from me every single time. And they came specifically back for the scooter. That was like their thing. They came to get the scooter to tour around because they had such a great time on it. It was, you're doing something right when people come back and you're like, "Weren't you just here 2 weeks ago? Aren't you from like New York City?" Like you would think a lot of times the tourist will go away and that's a one-time customer. You never see him again. Well, that was not the case this summer for me. It was, I couldn't believe how many, I had these 2 guys from Rochester that came every weekend, and I always knew, I'm like, "Oh, you guys are a spot to go check out."
it's always been one of my, I don't know if it's a pet peeve or a disappointment, but the understanding that Niagara Falls is a bucket list destination. You go there once and that's good enough. But no one thinks of Letchworth State Park that way.
Yeah.
I mean, the world doesn't know Letchworth exists. We do locally, but you'll go there all the time. But there are so many nooks and crannies. Every season's different. I mean, to really experience Niagara Falls, you have to come here 4 times. You have to come once in each season, and then you've been here. If you've been here in one season, you got a glimpse. That's summertime, But the fall, completely different. The spring, when the trees are flowering, you got another bird migration. They're all going north then, very different. And the winter, particularly when it's frozen, it's hard to enjoy it in those temperatures, but it can be breathtakingly different. Beautiful in a totally different way.
Oh yeah.
Covered in ice.
It's definitely the falls is, it changes all the time of just with the seasons. And, if we can somehow bolster those shoulder months up, I mean, I would love to be open, consistently for 8 months out of the year. I mean, I would love to be open 12 months out of the year.
Yeah.
But let's turn 3 into, 6 months, let's go with that market.
Let's talk about the current seasonal cycle of falls tourism right now. Like, you're not a one-man show, right?
I was this year just because of COVID.
Right.
I went down to one. At one point in the history of the business, I did have 4 locations at one time. I had 2 in Buffalo, 1 at Canal Side and at the Outer Harbor. I had 1, the current spot I still have, Old Fall Street and Prospect Street, and I had 1 inside the park right by the ticket booth of the Maid of the Mess. So I did have 4 locations going. I had at one point, I think about 6 employees. Seasonal employees, part-time employees.
Like how many hours a week?
One was full-time. All sporadic. I kind of ate up the bulk of it because this is, I'm still growing the business, so I still have to work a ton with it. And my brother-in-law was basically kind of like my right-hand man. He got most of the hours too, and then it was just a lot of like part-timers put in there. But it was so, and it's also tough to hire because you really were only busy from June, July, August. The rest of them, either those stands completely closed and we only had 1 location, so we only really needed 2 full-time employees. But if it was longer season, I could, and guarantee give people hours, it would be
People want to work.
yeah, and people everyone that really has worked for me always wants to come back and work in the summer, but sometimes I'm just like, you never know what's going to really happen. Is it going to be a rainy season? And also, you only really got a good 3 months that I know I can employ people. You never know what's going to happen in the off season, and if it's going to be good or bad, and you kind of prepare for those off seasons. So you can't just go, bulking up your payroll and your expenses, saying, oh, it's no big deal. We're doing really well in June, July, and August. Well, we're not going to do well November, December, January, February, and March. So you kind of plan that it's going to be completely dry. There's going to be no income coming in. And that makes your decisions in July and August, of what you're going to do to survive those winter months. And that's just the nature of the business. If there was a strong shoulder month, say April, a little bit of March, April, and a stronger May, and you had a strong September, October, November, maybe even December, you could employ people longer term, and you don't have to fret June, July, and August. You got some more months. It's
absolutely. Yeah, so that is that is a challenge, having dependable labor during that intense time, because who wants to commit to a 3-month job? And then your own personal finance challenges and raising a family and paying mortgages and not knowing what, one bad season for businesses like this, it kind of puts them at risk. But if you have a longer, steadier season, now there's a certain more security. So, my last episode, I talked to me, the low-hanging fruit is October. If we would all just focus on conquering October next year and then build on that, so that, let's pick mid-April to mid-May or April as the spring month to really focus on, that low-hanging fruit is just, to me, something that would create
it's
a huge impact. I mean, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, 100%. I think October, one, you have so much going in your favor. You have leaves changing, which is a big thing. Also, too, just like harvest time, there's so many different avenues and events you can go with from. I mean, I've heard ideas discussed of even like a Halloween type festival to even a fall. I mean, we've talked before just of like a foliage festival where people are coming and taking photographs of the leaves or of the gorge. To me, I always feel like, too, that time, I feel like there's a lot of like good hard ciders that come out. It just seems like apple picking, hard ciders, even just craft beers. There's so many things of like, it could be a craft beer festival in October. It could be, parlayed into a Halloween thing. It could be October. It just seems like it shouldn't be as slow as it is in October. You just see the numbers drop off. And I always feel too, where I'm at, I hear hotel numbers, I always feel like they have their kind of concerns. Obviously they want to fill up their beds. But you see that just the drive-in traffic dies down. Just even the traffic on the street. Right. I'm on Old Falls and Prospect Street. I always feel like I have a good sense of what's going on, of how many people come into town, just of seeing the numbers drop, just from the pedestrian traffic on the sidewalks, even seeing the state parking lot not fill up.
The busiest street.
Yeah.
When that dies off.
And in the middle of the week, it's I can usually tell by right when I drive down just how many cars are parked on Old Falls Street and just how many people are lingering around, what type of day it's going to be. It's going to be super slow traffic, and it's unfortunate because obviously you're also combating, people do go back to school, but maybe you can really be crushing it for 4 weekends with 4 planned activities and really make Niagara Falls this fall activity zone. It should be.
I've wrestled with that because that is true. And that's globally, the tourism market, obviously, the summer's easy. But there's so many niche markets that, people are traveling to a whole nother continent to do that specific activity, like foliage, or to experience a fresh harvest. Like, there's people who are just crazy about apples.
Yeah.
And we're kind of an apple capital. And then birders. I mean, I'm turning into a birder. Just because I'm trying to document all these little things about us and share that with the world. Like, look how much variety we have. We are a globally significant bird area. Like, you can't really go anywhere in the world where you'll find more species, particularly this time of year. So if you're into birds, come here. But
honestly, I've heard about it. It's like a great spot for bird watching, even fishing. I hear a lot. I know a couple of fishermen. Absolutely. People that are real into fishing, and it's not my cup of tea, but people seem to really enjoy it. It's going to be something that could be, and I know there has been a push for it. a little bit, but it doesn't seem, it is a niche thing, but I always think too, like we for some reason view the visitor as these people in these super far away areas. But,
Yeah.
I go to, like I've gone to Ellicottville's,
Right.
Oktoberfest, and a lot of that seems to be people from Erie County or Buffalo or Washington, New York going to East Aurora. It's not like
Yeah.
people from Washington, D.C. are going there. We could go after like a Buffalo market to come down here for the weekend and fill in the hotel rooms,
Even when you talk about Oktoberfest, everyone's going to some Oktoberfest in October.
Yeah.
And some of them are, one day. Ours has historically been like 4 hours. But there's other places that do it for a week. But Munich, the Oktoberfest, that is an entire 1 month festival.
Yeah.
And they are attracting people from all over the world to be in Munich for that. And they're not there for the whole month, obviously. Different people are coming at different points in the month. But Munich is just flooding itself with people to drink beer in a tent and listen to Oom-Pum-Pa music.
Yeah. There's a beer hall now in Buffalo, pretty much dedicated to that.
But now but anyone could do that. Anyone can throw up beer tents in their town, and have traditional bands. But not everyone can have a waterfall to go look at.
Yeah.
And have the foliage and have the birding.
Yeah, I mean, there's been efforts. I mean, I think, well, they didn't do it this year, but there has been an Oktoberfest on Old Fall Street, but it just doesn't seem to get the traffic or the energy like an Ellicottville gets. I mean, when you go to the Ellicottville one, it is unbelievable how packed it is with people. I mean, it is a scene.
Ellicottville's really
they
giving
crushed
it an
it.
effort.
Yeah, they've crushed it, and it'd be nice to see us do the same. I mean, they're so far south, we're so far north. You could have two of them, maybe not the same weekend, but I think somebody that went to one would probably go to another one. I mean, it's
Right.
But Niagara, Western New York is a very big beer drinking, wine drinking town. That's
True.
how it is. I mean, there's so many beer breweries in Buffalo that Buffalo just seems to have an excuse to drink. It's all you really need.
Right.
I mean, that's just how it is here. And I think low-hanging fruit, one is just simply the off-shoulder seasons, but how do we get Erie County to come and drink and have a great time in Niagara Falls and spend a night? How do we get them to do that? Or Rochester or Erie, PA. These are not far destinations.
When I make this kind of statement, people look at me like I'm crazy and absurd. But how do we get Ellicottville to visit Niagara Falls?
Yeah.
Right? And I'm like, well, that's stupid. Niagara Falls visits Ellicottville. Well, yeah, that's how it is.
Yeah,
But, it's like you don't want to compete. You don't want to try. You don't want to see things improve. You don't want to see things change when you fight that notion. And I don't want to steal. Ellicottville does great, and I want them to continue being successful. But we need to be successful too, right?
Yeah, and I don't think it's even competing to steal their customers. It's just, there's another option. I mean, I don't think I would ever go to Ellicottville's Oktoberfest again. It's just not my scene anymore. It was, in my 20s. And I think even to like the Art of Beer, awesome event. I go to it every year. It's in March, early March. Super fun. Could another one be done, in October or September, a craft beer festival on, in the downtown Niagara Falls area on 3rd Street maybe, or somewhere, I think it could. I mean, it's such a hit in March, and that's kind of a cold, people are indoors, they got to and it seems to be a big Erie County traffic. You got to travel here, get out of your car. It could be a snowstorm that night, where in September or October, you could still do it outside. I mean, if it hits 1 month, why not try it another month? I don't think it's...
You can have the art of, like you were saying earlier, the art of apple pie, the art of peach cobbler, all those things are coming in the season then. But also like fall sports, the weather that we have, I mean, you're in the bike renting business, but bike racing, it's an ideal time to do a bike race.
Yeah, some of the bigger things, we rent, for me, I have somewhat experimented with a little bit of the higher end bicycles. It's, not a huge traffic thing, but the biking here, I mean, we get a few people that are very serious bikers that come where they literally bring their own pedals that they take off and put on. We don't get a lot of that. Could this place become a destination? That 100%. There's enough biking, enough bike paths that are being built. I definitely could see it evolving into something like that. But there's so much opportunity that could occur to help bolster these shoulder months. It's just one is who's going to lead the charge on it. How is it going to evolve? And there's all these different entities around, but nobody seems to lead the charge on one thing. It just seems to kind of ideas always are discussed and they sound great, but they're just ideas. You got to put
You're right.
words into,
Put it
you got to get action going. Something has to take place.
No, I agree. I mean, I'm still thinking it through. I've been writing a plan myself. It's the same thing. I'm like, you've got to, and I get it. All existing entities have their own plan, their own thoughts, and their own efforts. And when you go to them, say, I'd like you to do this. Like, who are you and why are you bothering us? We already do this. But we obviously have to change. We can't keep floundering like this for decades. We've just invested, the state's invested $40 million. If it's either a good investment or a bad investment. It's a good investment if it changes the local economy and improves it. It's a bad investment if it's business as usual for the next 20 years.
Yeah, I mean, I look at it this. I view, as an entrepreneur, I right now I'm obviously focused on tourism and specifically Niagara Falls tourism. I found a way to start a business and make money, and that money I made, I've started a family with me, my wife, and eventually we lived in Buffalo. When we met, we ended up moving to 3rd Street and living above Wine on 3rd. To eventually we bought a house. We live here in the city because the real estate is just, for what you can buy, it's incredibly super inexpensive. It's almost unbelievable. And to be 5 minutes from where I make a living and to go home, it's a great fit.
Yeah.
But as an entrepreneur, I'm always constantly looking for other places to make money too. It's not like I say I'm stuck here. I can go anywhere. I always say I could get into any industry and learn it and figure out what to make a business off of it if I wanted to. It's really up to the entrepreneur really to grab that, by the bull by the horns and decide what that will evolve into. Because it's one thing for the government to do it, but I don't know if they should be leading the charge.
I'm not talking about the government at all. I'm talking about as a community, but we have to bring you have to bring the entrepreneur, you have to bring the business a market. And that's the thing. October, the market's not here. And there are micro things you can do that will improve your bottom line somewhat, but it's a way easier prospect if there are 10,000 people a day in town.
Oh, 100%. That's
it's
100%. That's an attractive.
To get 50 people to come to town, specifically rent a bicycle. It's more of a game changer when you, like the summer, it's so easy because there are 10,000 people in town every day. You only need 1% of them to rent a bike and you're good.
Yeah, exactly. Obviously, too, when you got a mass crowd of people, it's always, you can figure out how to sell them something. They're going to want something,
Right.
Just figure out what it is and just figure a way to supply it.
And now you can open another location because you just can't handle the volume at the one location, or you just need more space.
100%. And two, obviously, the community and the city and other businesses there's a kind of a somewhat of a disconnect too of the tourism market or tourism district and the rest of the city. There's got to be, I said, if we get so many tourists coming, it's going to spill over into the rest of the city. It's just,
exactly.
It is. As of right now, that's not happening. One, we just don't have as strong as a tourism industry that we should. The number's always touted that we get 8 million. I don't believe it, but it's a whole other topic of discussion.
It is.
But we just don't get the numbers to spill over into the rest of the city. It would be inevitable, that the rest of the town would be making money off tourism because we got so many people. And
well, absolutely. It goes back to like how many employees you would need. If you need 10 people full time because your business is that big, that's 10 people that are probably going to live in the city because it's a lot easier to get to work from the city than coming from East Aurora to work at Pedicab. But you kind of brought up another point I want to go back and revisit, though, and that's the that disconnect between the tourism industry and the rest of the city. When we go back to the time when we were an industrial city and didn't care about tourism at all, everyone understood industry, though, because they were involved in it, right? My dad works there. My uncle works here. He works there. So we all kind of understood that. But now it is such a, person-wise, it's a very small portion of our economy. Economically, it is the economy here.
Yeah.
And I was always upset, and I think it's getting a little bit better. There's been tweaks where we used to actually subsidize tourism on the back of our own residents. who are already overtaxed. That's starting to kind of change. But if you grow your industry and continue with that trend, like other destination cities, now not only is it cheap to live in Niagara Falls because the real estate doesn't cost much, but it's cheap to pay your taxes and your roads are fixed and your schools are good. So, I mean, to me, that's why it's such an important thing to absolutely grow this market. The other aspect of that is, we've got, and that's why I think, the GorgeView local focus is trying to get the locals to understand what they have a little better,
Yeah, I think I always have thought this, and at one time I maybe brought it up when I was the chairman of the Tourism Advisory Board for a very brief moment, was that I think there needs to be a big push in high school and middle school that you're a tourist town and that, there is opportunity here. Maybe not a lot of opportunity, but there is opportunity here to make money in the tourism industry. And really, the opportunity is as an entrepreneur because there's not a lot developed right now.
Right.
And there's a lot of opportunity for things to be developed. And a lot of it in the service-based industry as an entrepreneur is a very low beginning cost. Somebody
right.
doing a walking tour or any type of
Exactly.
tour, honestly, it's maybe like $1,500 to get it going. It's not a huge investment. Might sound like a lot, but in the grand scheme of business, it isn't $1 million project.
Right.
You
It's not
don't.
a monstrous
Yeah,
capital investment.
it can be done. There are so many different things that could be done, and opportunity in the tourism industry. And if we start getting the youth to believe that there is opportunity, maybe they would start believing a little bit more in their city and treating their city a little bit better. Then this seems like in this town, living here and driving around in a lot of these neighborhoods. I drive around a lot. I like to drive and listen to music and think brainstorm. And I just there's not a lot of pride, it seems like. People that live here don't have much pride in the city. You can just tell by they throw their trash on the ground. They just seem to have a very negative attitude. So it's, how do you change a city's attitude? Well, it comes from the youth, because then they're going to become adults, and maybe the adults eventually won't have that negative attitude anymore, and eventually it'll slowly change. It isn't an immediate change. It's going to be a gradual build-up change, but it starts with maybe schools having, like, their F-Bites, great little restaurant, great little spot downtown. The guy that runs that, I believe he's doing something in the high school of teaching kids to run restaurants. And right there, that's a kind of a pride, but not just a skill, but it's a pride building thing. Maybe something from the tourism industry could be done in that aspect of how do we get people to believe in their city again.
I think field trips, well, particularly this year, might be the best year to do it. You're not going to take a field trip to New York City this year.
Yeah,
Let's do like a staycation. Let's
Yeah.
do a local field trip. Let's walk you the gorge trails. I mean, people on the other side of the city haven't come down to the gorge. Let's show you what you have on your doorstep.
Yeah, this year I've had the most locals from Niagara Falls rent for me than I've ever had ever. And a lot of them came down and couldn't believe the activity was coming down here. So then they eventually just started coming down because there's activity that they're seeing. They want to be around in the street on Old Falls Street, which is great to see. And can we get more of that?
We should be much prouder of what we have.
Oh, 100%.
And I'm guilty of it too in the past, and I'm really making a conscious effort to try to steer away from focusing on the negatives and promote these positives. Again, 14 miles of natural wonder. Border. Two of our entire city's borders is bordered by complete, pristine natural wonder like nowhere else on earth. And we take it for granted. Yeah, the ability, me and my wife, when my kids were first born, we would walk, put our kids on the back, we would walk from Devil's Hole to Whirlpool State Park and back. That was like an evening walk we would have. And it was just unbelievable that I could drive for 5 minutes, park my car, and walk this beautiful thing. Every day. We did it every day in like September at one point. And then even too, Hyde Park. My wife walks Hyde Park quite a bit, and we would walk sometimes, with our kids, and there's a huge playground over there, and just walking it. Even now, I have some critique of the park I would like to see done more, maybe an actual bike path and some other things, but it's like this big, giant, beautiful park. It's like unbelievable how nice it is. Hyde Park's super nice. Most iconic example of this problem, but I've been doing some other documentary photography around town in preparation for trying to do this big push for October. So I've been visiting all at Reservoir State Park. Again, a totally desolate, empty park. You might see 5 people and a couple kids on a playground, 8 basketball courts, 3 tennis courts, 7 ball diamonds.
Yeah.
All this park infrastructure. And then just down the road from that, you've got NU, of course, at least that's a university now using their stuff, but it's another sporting complex. Then DeVille Woods, there's 2 ballparks there, and another playground and a doggy park. All around the city, we have a ton of park infrastructure, highly underutilized. And if you start really doing a push and having these activities that we talked about, like the Art of Beer being down by, say, throw up beer tents in DeVille Woods State Park instead of on Prospect Street or Old Fall Street. Pull those events out of the park so those tourists are being pulled out of the park. They're going to go in the park. You're not going to stop them from going to the park. We don't want to stop them. But I don't want you to walk into the park, see the waterfall, go back to your hotel room and wonder what else there is to do. I want to pull you to other points in the thing. But obviously there's a lot more to talk about. We should probably have it back in a few more times here, particularly in the winter when we're bored, and go deeper into some of these little niches.
Definitely. We have our discussions on usually we're drinking beer.
Yep.
And
then we
get
I'm
drinking beer and you're drinking Jack and Coke or whatever.
That's true. Don't see me drinking beer often.
People probably see me drinking beer too much.
All right. Well, thanks for coming in, Galen, and we'll definitely have you again.
Thanks for having me.